Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of DraxBytes. I'm Drax. I'll be your host for this next little while. We're going to talk about branding. Yes, branding. This right here, you'll see, that's a brand. More actually, it's a branding iron. It produces a brand. This brand is actually for Ebenezer Bryce. You know, the guy that founded Bryce Canyon, or Bryce Canyon was named after. This is a brand he used for his livestock so that as they roamed free in the canyon, his property, his animals could be differentiated from other ranchers that were also grazing their animals in the canyon. Now, what has that got to do with your DJ or photo booth business? Do you have a unique brand? Something that is permanent, sticks? Well, most people don't. So let's set Ebenezer's brand aside for a minute and talk about your brand. Do you have one? Do you know what one is? So to get a better understanding, let's look at some commercial brands that are widely known. If I was to ask you, what alcoholic beverage is most notably associated with horses, what would you say? I can pretty much bet money people would say Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, and the Budweiser Clydesdales. Now, think to yourself, the most popular soft drink brand in the world in terms of name recognition and identifiability. Coca-Cola, correct? Exactly. And yet, if you think about it, in a few weeks, they're going to spend millions and millions of dollars for an advertisement during the Super Bowl to promote Coca-Cola. Like, there's anyone on the planet that's never heard of Coca-Cola before? Yet they do it. Why? Because it's brand reinforcement. It allows their brand to be sustained in the marketplace. If they fail to do it, it wouldn't be very long before it would be thought of less, and it would start to move in position. Other brands that are in the consumer eye saying, we taste great, we're better, we're good, they may start to be what the consumer would choose because they've been ingrained or impressed to think about Pepsi or to think about this other beverage. So now, what has that got to do with a photo booth business or a DJ business? Everything. Because your brand is the presence that sticks in the minds of consumers. Your brand is the presence that sticks in the mind of other event professionals when they're getting a quick call from somebody asking who they would refer. They don't have to go to their Rolodex. If your brand awareness and brand presence is sufficient, they will immediately know you because your logo will come to their mind and they will know, and your phone number, everything about your organization will come spilling right out. That's powerful brand awareness. Brand awareness can also be words, not just graphical imagery. In my DJ business, in my entertainment company, it was, we create events that your guests will never forget instead of ones they'd like to. Well, ultimately, the value to that was not to deprecate others, but it was to focus on the fact that there was a lot of events that weren't very good. And that we were making the statement, we will make them really good, memorable. You need to look at a couple of things with your brand. Do you have a USP, a unique selling proposition? So you want to think about what your USP is and what it means to a consumer. Last week, we talked about the power of you and listings of things you think are important and the things consumers think are important. But today we need to talk about what you think is important. So when you have that USP, that then does have to be validated by the market, by the consumer, that it truly is something unique you do that no one else does or can do, or you do it better than everyone else. When that becomes the case, that becomes a brand message, a brand point. You can have numerous brand points in a company, but what you want to do is try to focus on a centrality of idea or ideas. You want to have something that speaks in few words simple graphics, what it is your company does and why you do it and why you're better than everyone else. For example, the ultimate driving machine. You're already thinking BMW. Why? Because that message has been played and played and played and played and played. It's in here. That's what you want for your DJ business. You want people to feel that way because they've seen your ads in local magazines, they've heard your ads on radio, or they've gotten this from other event professionals and they hear it from other event professionals. When 3 or 4 event professionals refer you, that customer is going to pretty much call you and say, where do I send the money? Because if they get that kind of endorsement, that makes your brand stick because it says, your service is stuck in the minds of these other people. I'll take that as wisdom that you're a good company. So as you look at developing a brand, there's a couple of things that come to bear. Are you looking at a brand mark, like a trademark or a logo, a word mark, which would be your company name or a slogan? Or are you looking for something that actually defines what your service is and why it's different? It's the latter. The prior two are expressions of the latter in a legal or formality way that allows them to be protected speech, that allows them to be uniquely yours. So what you think about with your brand, you've discovered your USP, or at least you think you have. Now you want to test that brand. So you find some friends that will be brutally honest and say, this is my brand statement. Do you think that reflects what I do? After you've gotten a reasonable affirmation from people that know you well, now talk to some old clients, some past clients, and say, would you say this describes our company and the service we provide? If they say yes, then that's a very positive thing for you to think about. Then you can now go on and nail that down as a brand point. And you can do that with a few different items until you come up with it. But notice the strength with which people respond. The strength with which people respond will indicate the strength of that brand point. And if you're only going to have one brand point, you want it to be the one that resonates the strongest. You want it to be the one that qualifies in the mind of a prospect that you've never met, what you do, why you do it, and why you actually are the best at it. So as you think about your branding, come back around and ask yourself, what's my logo going to look like? Do I have brand colors? If I ask you about a store where everybody wears orange, I bet you can tell me. And if I say correspondingly, do you know a store where they all wear blue? You'll know that that's Lowe's and the first was Home Depot. Because they created a direct correlation between a color and their brand. It's not a mistake or an accident. They do it. Coca-Cola is red and white. They actually created their own font, if you will. They found a font and got the fontography such that if you put it in your computer and wrote any other series of words with that fontography, people would be drawn to thinking of Coca-Cola. Clever, huh? So what you want to think of is the power of those things. The same thing is true with the font that is used for Disney. You see anything written in that font, you are drawn to Disney because Disney has done such a huge brand impression and brand identity to that font. So you want to now start looking at fonts, colors, typefaces. Typefaces and fonts are similar, but I differentiate them in that I look at typefaces as being bold, normal, etc., where the font is the actual style. The typeface is big, bold, small, reduced, italic. So what you want to look at then is developing something that not only is cute and attractive and unique, but you want it to be readable. Don't pick a font that isn't readable. Coca-Cola, that font isn't readable at small point type. You want it to be as readable and legible and identifiable to you at any point within reason. So now you've picked out some colors and you want to test those colors. When you put your brand together in that color, you want to say, what does that speak to you? What does that say to you? Does that convey our emotional tenor, our tone, our company message? Does that reflect our brand? If it does, positive. If not, then go back and continue to adjust and test. So as you look at your brand, focus down to one central kind of imagery. This is why you'll hear me talk about, if you have a DJ and a photo booth business, they should have separate domains and separate names and be separate brands, because there's a power in being able to market that second brand to people that may have refused your service on brand one. So now, as you contemplate what a brand needs to be for you, how do you create a Coca-Cola brand, a Home Depot brand that speaks to what you do? Well, you're going to have to market. Marketing we'll cover a little bit later, but that is something that you have to do. You have to get your brand out there. And it's more than just you performing. It has to be something that is tangibly reinforceable, that people will carry with them and think about. Here's an example. Look at your brand from a business card standpoint. If you look at any physician's business card, they're almost always monocolor with black ink. And they're almost always an easily readable block font. The reason is they're not looking to impress you with their artistry. They're looking to communicate information, present themselves professionally. And in today's day and age, folks, they're looking to have something scannable. I get hundreds and hundreds of business cards. The ones that I scan them all. The ones that scanned well go in the database. The ones that didn't go in the garbage. And that's something you got to think about. What does your brand do in terms of ease of transference into people's memories and their elastic memory, which is their electronics? So you want to look at that and think about that to some degree. Now you want to start to talk about brand placement. Where will I place my brand? Well, when I was running an entertainment company, I've said this before, I covered up the logos of all the people that made the equipment I used, lights, etc. And I had custom labels made that said they were part of Drax Works. They were part of my company. Why? Because the brand I wanted to promote and reinforce was mine, not the people I bought the lights from. But coming a little farther down the road, you want in your literature that your brand is reinforced. You want in your telephonography that your brand is reinforced. If somebody calls your number, do they get Bob's Lawn Service and DJ and Magic Music DJ service, or do they get a consistent unified message? Today we live in an age where telephone numbers are relatively cheap. If you have various business enterprises, that's fine. Have various brands and have them have different phone numbers. Have them come together differently. Now, as you think about your brand, we've kind of glossed at about the 5,000 foot level. And we did this because we wanted you to start to think about brand concepts. Brand concepts. Remember Ebenezer? You want to have something that when you use that brand, anybody that sees it knows whose it is. So what you want to think about as you go forward is who you're trying to reach, what the message is, how will it be received, and can I leverage it? So as you think about your brand, hopefully you've started to come up with some ideas, focusing on your unique selling proposition, your USP. Because until you've identified that, you really can't move forward with a brand. And I would tell you, you might want to rename your company. A good friend of mine, his company was Porta Party. Yeah, that was it. Porta Party. Say that 3 times and tell me what you think of. It's not a great DJ party. He realized that and changed it to a much, much better brand. JLK Events. Boom. Resonates. It's crisp. It's clear. And it's distinctly elegant. It more accurately reflected the kinds of events and services he really provided. So now what I want you to talk about amongst yourself in your head, do your own thinking, your own talking. How can I elevate my brand? What is my brand? What can I do to improve my brand? When you come back, put your comments down below. If you have questions, ping me at office@adja.org or on Facebook. I'll be happy to communicate with you, help you in any way. Send your thoughts and input. We'll be glad to help you. We'll tailor an episode exactly around the things that you'd like to see about branding in a further episode to drill deeper into it. Because ultimately, you will never be highly successful until you identify and develop a brand that's uniquely you. For DraxBytes, this is Drax. See you next week.